It was actually a combination of federal and state laws that actually forced me to be here, and so now I am forced to spend 4 years
Can you repeat that last part?
here. So it was a combination of federal and state laws that actually required me to spend 4 years here. So now I'm here.
Oh, a twisted fate is one of the things. Before I came here, I was in Vermont teaching English and coaching and living way out in a part of the woods that you could only get to by 4-wheel drive, where the snow would be 5-6 feet deep in the winter. And 2.5 years of that led me back to warmer climes, and this is in the area where I grew up and went to school in Fairfield. So that's one thing. There was a job opening was another thing.
I was a terrible high school student. I had a bad experience in high school, and I think that I decided to devote my entire adult life to actually trying to get high school right. So it's like Groundhog Day. I just keep reliving it.
Well, my parents pay taxes in New Canaan, so I go to school in New Canaan.
My parents moved here from Atlanta when I was little because they liked the education, and so we came here. And since I live 5 minutes away, I go to school here.
When I applied for the job here, it's a bit of a long commute. I never really thought I would take it, but it just was a very nice atmosphere. I felt that the administration and the faculty were very professional, and I felt the students were motivated, and it would be a fun place to teach.
I came to be a child development teacher because I actually took child development in high school, and it was my favorite class, and I realized that I wanted to be a teacher because I came from a family of teachers.
I think to be a high school student in this day and age compared to other periods, I think there's a whole new set of challenges because of technology, social media, and dealing with a whole nother set of dramas, if you will. And then it also has its positives where our ability to access information has been made that much easier. And so it's a very interesting kind of way to walk the line between the good and the bad with technology.
You know, that is something that I wonder about all the time. I think there are so many ideas and conjectures about that. And I think even the students themselves are not completely clear about it. But my guess is that there is much more freedom extended to kids, young people in high school in 2011, and that over the last decade or so, students have become more responsible with that freedom.
I think it's got to be really boring, honestly, because it was boring for me, but I didn't have the other life that you guys have. You have this sort of really dynamic, interactive other life. And I would think it's really, I just know that for me, when I come to school to do professional development, I have to go through classroom to classroom to classroom and have somebody talk at me the whole time. I'm bored out of my tree. And that's kind of how your day is cut out for the most part. There are exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's the idea behind the schedule. And I would think that's got to be pretty dull considering all the other exposure you have to participatory life.
Well, there's definitely probably more advancements in technology, like people start bringing computers to school and they can work on those, take notes on computers. I know I do. And it's probably just definitely different than other past years. Smart boards in every classroom, stuff like that.
It's really busy because you have so many opportunities available, but you also want to take advantage of all of them, so you end up doing more than you can handle. But it's fun because you enjoy it, but you just end up being really busy.
In many ways, it's not different than when I was a high school student. There's a lot of peer pressure for different things. You've got very busy lives, as we did back then, between sports and clubs and outside activities and, of course, the never-ending homework. I think one thing that is different is that I think there's a lot more pressure now on students in high school to get good grades, to get into college, get into the right college, which there's a lot of right colleges out there. I think that's the biggest difference, but it's just a busy life, and it's the life of a high school student.
I think being a high school student, especially here in New Canaan, is a lot different than other places in Connecticut. I actually am Connecticut native, so I went to high school in Connecticut, but I went to a very rural area high school, and it was a very small setting. And I think being here in New Canaan in a kind of medium to large size high school that's close to the city, I think it's very challenging, but uplifting because we get a lot of different kinds of students that have parents that are in different avenues of life and have a lot of life experience. So our students here have a lot of life experience through their parents and their families. But I also think it's very demanding. I think students are really stressed about meeting their own goals and then meeting goals that their parents want them to meet, which was very different than high school students, I think, in the past, even when I was in high school.
Well, students are definitely like different. Like I would say like just the aura of like talking like outside of the classroom compared to in the classroom is different. Like because you'll hear a plethora of swear words out in the hallway, but while you're in the classroom, no one's gonna like say anything bad. I don't know.
In a classroom setting, they have to pretend like they care about everything that everyone's talking about, but when they're outside, they can only care about what they want to care about.
I think it depends on the classroom. I think in some classrooms, students tend to be much more formal and reticent to speak, afraid of being wrong, that type of thing. Some classrooms, they're not very different than they are out in the hallway. It just depends on the other students around them, depends a bit on the teacher. I think, and both of those have their pluses and their minuses, of course. But I think that's about it.
I get to work with students a lot outside of the classroom. I'm a volunteer Young Life leader, and I've volunteered to do a lot of special projects here in the high school with students after school. And so I've seen a lot of students in different settings. And I think in the classroom, students are really willing and accepting of different types of personalities. Students are more willing to like work with people they may not work with or they may not be friends with outside of class. They're very accepting, they're less prejudicial. But I think outside the classroom, there's more cliques. People are not willing to say hi to someone outside of the classroom. It's kind of like in the classroom setting, everyone is more equal. But outside the classroom, especially in the lunchroom, there's definite territorial areas. They may, because I teach 9 through 12 classes with foods and nutrition, seniors and freshmen interact very well together, but they may not act that well or that kind or respectful outside of the classroom without teacher supervision.
Sure. So I've been in a couple classes now, as I think most people have, where because of the teacher, somebody else in the class, there will be a student with, a great idea that they don't go on to share simply because they are concerned about what everyone else in the class might think. And you've even seen examples, or I've even seen examples, where they'll say that and then somebody else in the class will quickly shoot that down. At the same time, have been examples of, immense collaboration or group discussions that lead to, a whole new level of thinking that you wouldn't have gotten to had the entire class not contributed equally to it. So definitely the pros and cons to that.
Yeah, I can say this now. Actually, one of the scariest moments in this school, and I had plenty in others, but in this school was when we had a student who's now a lawyer. He graduated in '03, And he'd had a tough couple of last years. He was doing fine until like middle of his junior year, and then it all started to fall apart. But he got into a fight, like a real fight, and you don't get a lot of that here, so it was a shocker for me. And there were two kids that I really liked a lot, and they both had very different reasons, but really valid reasons for taking a front at the conversation that was happening. And I think that was actually one of my most disconcerting moments. And I'm still friends with one of the two kids, which is why I know he's a lawyer.
This one time I was in the hallway and I saw one of my friends drop their books, and this person who she totally actually didn't know came and just picked them up for her and was like, here. And so it was like, oh, kindness.
One another. I'll go to the negative ones first, because the negative ones always stick in my mind. But you know, I've seen instances where students will intentionally not speak to another student. They'll avoid that student. That student comes and sits down at the desk next to them. They'll get up and move to another desk. It's rare, but it happens occasionally, and it's just hurtful to me to even see.
I think there's so many positives. I think they definitely outweigh the negatives. Positive interactions, especially because I'm a child development teacher, I see so many students kind of work together and pull together to make a really good experience for our preschool kids that come here and visit. And there's so many positive things where students actually will motivate each other and say, like, you can do this, don't worry, you know, we can make this project happen. And they work together, or they stay after school and pull their things together to really make a unique experience, and to actually, you know, work together and meet a goal and be excited about meeting a goal is something that's so positive.
I can connect to the first passage in that I think everybody, if not in high school, then later on in life, will kind of come up with this realization that they are kind of their own being, and everything around them has an outside effect on them, the push or the shove that is kind of mentioned in that first quote. And so it's, you can connect to it simply in that at some point or another everyone comes to that realization that the world around them is just that it's kind of solitary, and they are their own being, and everything around them is nothing more than forces acting on them, and what they do with those forces is kind of up to them.
Who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. Although I'm not sure that applies anymore. It might have. I think that analog timelines are not as relevant as they were in Orwellian times, and that's all.
Kind of a little bit deep for me to think about on the spot. Maybe if I wrote down something, I'd be able to interpret it better. I don't know.
You know, I briefly looked at them, and I would have to sit and think about those for a while. Don't have the time to really sit and think those through.
I really liked the quote, "Who controls the past controls the future," because I really think that you can learn from your mistakes in the past. And as a child development teacher, I always talk about the theory of life trajectory. And life trajectory is this research idea that you can actually, one decision or one moment in your life can actually change the course of your future and the path that your life will take. And I think a lot of times students will experience something in high school that will actually impact their career choice. I have students that are involved in a lot of volunteer work that's really shaping how they view their career in the future. They really want a career that's going to help people based on their community service experiences. I know in my life, taking child development in high school which really changed my perspective on what I wanted to do for my career. And I think that learning from mistakes, if you learn from the mistakes in your past, they are going to impact your future in a positive way. And you can therefore impact other people in a positive way based on your past experiences and sharing them.